Welcome, everyone, to Blue Collar Startup, the podcast where hard work meets big ideas. This is your home for real talk, real stories, and real strategies from the front lines of life in the business of the trades. I'm one of your hosts, Mike Nelson from Five Towers Media, and Derek is jumping on, but I know he's a little indisposed at the moment. But realistically, other than this short intro, we're going to let Stacy Spector from Catamount Consulting do the lifting today for our Women in the Trades episode. Which, if you don't know, we're doing a few different formats these days. We've got, obviously today is Women in Trades, and Stacy comes on as a guest host. We also have interviews from the field when we're sitting down with blue collar workers, tradespeople, business owners, and kind of talk about what they do and what they see every single day. Also, Catamount comes on and does a Catamount roundtable with us every other month, and that is where we are sitting down talking about specific ideas. A lot of the times it has to do with personal growth, development, having that growth mindset, and some really fun, cool topics that we all really love to talk about. And then, of course, we've got the episodes with Bill Tanzi, the Let's Ask Bill or the Lab episodes that we're doing. We've got one coming up here and excited about that as well. Real quick, before we get started, just want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors. They are Peoplease, Martin Electric, MLB Construction, Bonaccio Construction, Michaels Group, Catamount Consulting, Northeast Construction Trades Workforce Coalition, Curtis Lumber, Daigle Cleaning Systems, and of course, my team over at Five Towers Media. I think that's it, Stacy. I think we're going to bring you in, Stacy Spector from Catamount Consulting, to introduce your guest and say all the nice things.
Yes, well, thanks. I'm always appreciative of the opportunities that you guys at Blue Collar give us as Catamount team members to be involved. So you're doing great things, and we're always happy to be involved in anything you have going on. So I'll do my best as a new co-host title, right? I'll add that to my resume.
Yeah.
And we'll get started. I'm super excited about today's guest. And, I would say I met Sarah maybe 3.5, 4 years ago. I got introduced to her while she was at the AGC. And right away, I kind of put her into my top 5 favorites in the construction and trades industry. She's definitely got an energy and sees things through lenses that we definitely align with, and sort of the people first approach to how she tackles all of her roles. So super excited to get to know Sarah a little bit more and have our viewers learn about what she does and the energy she brings to the construction and trades industry. So thank you, Sarah, first for agreeing to give us your time. We appreciate it. And let's start with just, getting to know you a little bit better. Maybe give us some details about who you are, what, where you're from, what you like to do, and a little bit about you and your faves.
Sure. Well, thank you guys for having me. My name is Sarah Patrie. I am currently the executive director of PCI Northeast, which is the Precast Pre-Stressed Concrete Institute Northeast chapter. It's a mouthful, but we'll get into that in a little bit. I currently live in Ballston Spa with my husband, and I'm originally from Chestertown, about an hour north of here. I know Stacy's got a place up in Warrensburg, or the office is up towards Warrensburg, and that's where we did meet through AGC, but I think I came up to your guys' office and yeah. So, but my husband and I have a camp up in Long Lake, so we like to do all the outdoorsy Adirondacky things. If we're, having a fire and a 4-wheeler ride or a snowmobile ride or fishing or whatever, that's kind of what we like to spend our time doing on the weekends. And if our friends and family are there, even better.
Nice. So let's, I guess, start with where this all began with you, and sort of what the route you took with regard to your education and sort of what steered you towards that, your interest, and did you have experience, or did you have family members that were in construction and trades industry, and sort of how you got to your first position. And I think that was DA Collins, and you can correct me if I'm wrong with that.
Yeah. So, growing up, my whole family was in construction to a certain degree. My dad is a residential contractor, so is my brother now. My stepbrother has a cast and place concrete business. My stepfather is in commercial construction. My whole mom's side of the family was in well drilling, so very well versed in kind of the blue collar sort of world. But I was also really good at math and science, and at that time was kind of set on that STEM sort of path. Didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I knew that I was really into bridges as a kid. I thought the bridges were just so cool from a constructability standpoint, from a design standpoint. And that's when my dad was like, hey, maybe you should think about being a civil engineer. They design bridges. So when I was in high school, now I went to a small high school, North Warren. So we graduated in the 30 to 40 people range. So it was pretty small, and it was before all of the high tech, taking classes online and things like that. So we didn't have a ton of access to advanced placement classes. So when I was a senior in high school, I was able to connect with my local BOCES program, and they were actually offering at the time, it was called New Visions Engineering. And they just stopped doing the program last year, unfortunately. But it had a good run while it was going. And I was able to do that. And through that, I could take advanced placement, calc and physics and chemistry. And then what that really opened my mind to, though, it was about engineering as a whole, which is really just a problem solving mindset. But what we were able to do was through the BOCES program, they would set up site visits with different companies all over the capital region and all different kinds of engineering. So I was able to visit software engineers and environmental engineering firms and construction companies and civil engineering firms and figure out what I did and didn't want to do. So that was really huge. If I didn't have that opportunity in high school, I don't know where I would be right now. So I did that, decided civil engineering was definitely what I wanted to do. Construction was what I wanted to do. I went to Clarkson University and got my bachelor's in civil engineering. And then I did go on to get my PE, which not a ton of people do, especially if they're in the construction path. But it is becoming more and more valuable these days. So that's how I got here.
So for people that don't necessarily know, like if you had to describe, if you could, what does a PE do, or what would you say it represents in the industry?
Yeah. So a PE is a professional engineer's license. A lot of times you hear the term engineer and it could be tied to a bunch of different job titles. And like I said, engineering as a whole is really a problem-solving mindset. But when it comes to being a licensed professional, especially in the world of construction and civil engineering, that is where your PE is going to be stamping your plans. So most buildings, bridges, anything, that has a public safety component, that all has to be designed and stamped by a professional engineer. So that's the engineers that serve, say, for the DOT or maybe some municipalities, and the engineers that you work with on the project design team. And then there's PEs in construction too. Now we have the same license, but we might not necessarily specifically design. I'm not a practicing designer. But my whole goal of getting it in the construction world was as jobs continue to get bigger and they're bundled differently, and sometimes there's different procurement methods like design build, it's becoming increasingly more important for the whole design team to be able to collaborate, meaning that you're bringing in your engineers, your architects, your contractors, your subcontractors before the job is even designed. And that way everybody's giving their 2 cents from a constructability stance. And you can build a better project for a better price. And then you've got this whole team collaboration, and having a PE with that helps. And there's actually a lot of requirements in contract documents now that your construction team has a PE on staff, whether or not they're stamping and practicing, regardless.
Gotcha. Awesome. And I'm always in awe when, I listen to engineers talk and the things and the projects that they do. And I can't even wrap my head around it to begin to understand when you talk about bridge work and all of those amazing things that they can problem solve and look at and understand. And we're just like, oh my God, how do they make that? Right.
Same.
So So I love that, you had that opportunity or the experience that you mentioned through BOCES, because we are very passionate about that and trying to, sort of bridge that gap of getting students and, those trying to determine what job path they want to consider, and really exposing them to all the different things that are available in the construction and trades industries, because, there's always just such a lack of knowledge and lack of direction in that space, that whatever we can do to be able to, educate students, whether it's construction and trades through a path through college, or if it's directly into construction and trades absent college, it's always a struggle that we're hoping to try and close that gap. And it sounds like at least the experience you had through BOCES really was a great one for you, and exposed you to understand, which area of engineering you wanted to go into, and led you on a great path. Now, Clarkson, I assume there was a couple of, different opportunities or schools that you were looking at. Was there something that stood out specifically with the Clarkson program that drew you towards them?
I did what nobody should do. I put all my eggs in one basket, and I
Yeah.
decided I was going to Potsdam, New York, period. So I was really glad when they accepted me because that was my plan. I didn't really
Yeah.
have another plan.
Cool.
But
Yeah,
it's a
no,
great
that
school.
happens.
Loved the location, being from the North Country. I didn't really want to leave the North Country, and smaller school when you think about a fully accredited engineering university. So it's just where I was comfortable.
And when you chose, do you get real specific with, within that program of the focus on bridges, or is it more widespread or broader for what you have to specify within the engineering program itself?
You could do different minors and things like that, and their programs have changed since I graduated. I did do a construction concentration at the time, so I was able to focus in on taking electives that had to do with estimating and contract proposals and things like that. And now they have a robust construction management program, and they have a master's degree. They've got all sorts of programs that they get a lot of input from the industry on, which I think is incredible, because if you're building the next generation, what better than to hear from the people that are going to be hiring them on what they're looking for as far as qualities and skills coming out of school.
Yeah. So I'm curious, since we are focusing on, amazing women in the construction and trades industry, what was the diversity as far as some of your classmates? Did you have a decent mix of men and women in that program that you're in, or did you seem to still lack a little bit in the numbers for women representation?
Yeah, I'd say that we lacked in the numbers in the civil engineering program. In the school overall, no.
No.
But definitely, yeah, there was far fewer women in my class. But I mean, we all stuck together, and I think we were kind of used to it at that point. Same thing, like as I was entering the construction industry, you're kind of just used to it. But I will say in the last 15 years, boy, how things have changed. So
Yes. Awesome. So, all right. So we go to Clarkson, and then you get into your first real world true engineering job at DA Collins. So what did that transition look like, and how did you land there?
yeah, so I started at DA Collins when I was an intern. I was 19. So I worked for them for 2 summers before I graduated, and then started full time. And the project management role with them at the time was kind of from project inception to project close. So you had your hands on it from the minute the plans came out. You were on the estimating team, then you jumped into the buyout team, and then the project management team, and then closing it out. So you really got to touch every aspect of the project. And then obviously there was a lot of learning that had to happen before I could just jump in and do that. So I had some really incredible mentors, and just learned about all different kinds of projects. I was on, waterwork projects, some large concrete projects, bridges, roads. I got to do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I mean, the mentoring piece, I would imagine, especially in that field, is so significant, just to expose you to everything and sort of get your feet wet in that industry. And I'm, glad that you brought that up. Do you think having those really solid mentors has sort of shaped the way that you approach all of the roles that you've found yourself in since DA
100%.
Collins?
100%. It's been 15 plus years, and I still call on them today every once in a while on specific things. Hey, what do you think? Just really, really great, incredible people, and so smart. And they've seen a lot of things. You cannot replace experience. That's probably one of the biggest issues that we have in our industry is kind of bridging that knowledge gap from those that have all this experience and are retiring, and those that are entering and not really having that time to overlap with each other. Yeah, so I still do call on them.
And that's great that, sometimes the difficulty is getting some of those more, seasoned, experienced individuals to understand and invest the time to mentor and help the younger generation. And a lot of times there's a lot of different factors that come into play, but it sounds like it was a great culture where that was already well established as part of their culture and woven into, that's just how they operate as serving as coaches to everybody. So that sounds like it was an awesome experience. What would you say making the transition from student into now your real, real world PEA role is? What would you think was the biggest obstacle or one of the hardest things to sort of acclimate to, if there was one?
Um, at the time, I would definitely say just kind of learning that you don't need to know everything. I think people feel like they're expected to know everything. If you're the project manager on a $20 million job at 24 years old, nobody expects you to know everything, but you feel like you're supposed to. So that's something that was really important to learn, and, asking those questions and knowing that, nobody wants to see you fail. We want to see you try, and we want to see you try hard. Don't just throw your hands up and say, I can't do this, but nobody wants to see you fail, and failures do happen. But when they do, we've got your back. Let's figure out how to work through it.
Yeah, definitely. I can imagine. I can't imagine that that weight of like thinking like at that young age and working on such massive projects like that, and you being the go-to person, that stress or that comes with that. But then to have the mentor that you feel comfortable having the opportunity to ask, and they get it and understand and make you feel confident in the fact that they're there to support you rather than shut you out. So super important, for a great place to have that culture piece involved for your learning, and then now your knowledge of how you relay that to and help and mentor other people that you come in contact with. Would you say you had a project or a project that stands out that you worked on while you were there?
I had all sorts of stuff that stands out. But two projects that stand out just off the top of my head. One was my very first kind of boots on the ground project. It was fall of 2011 when Hurricane Irene came through and kind of decimated everything in New York State. We were one of the emergency contractors for DOT at the time. And I mean, everybody was wiped off the map. It was really horrible. But to see the collaboration for an emergency response when we had roads and bridges, and my job was down on the Mohawk River, the canals were just completely wiped away. The river went around the lock systems. So we spent a year putting the river back to where it was supposed to go and fixing up the lock systems and getting the canal back online for the following year. But being able to see all of that collaboration when it came to the state agencies that we had to work with and other subcontractors and other contractors, and who had what equipment where and what could we share, and how can we move forward together because the whole state needed it. That kind of parlays into, part of why I wanted to eventually work for AGC too.
So let's, I guess, switch into that transition then, because that's, very different role than DA Collins. So how did you navigate that path, and what sort of led you in the direction of now AGC and, fitting into that role?
Yeah. So I definitely have a non-traditional path when it comes to anything construction related. I acknowledge that there's not a lot of people that are out there doing what I'm doing, going from being a licensed PE in construction to nonprofit management on the trade association side. But I'd always known AGC. I was a scholarship recipient when I was in college. They have a very robust scholarship program. And that was thanks in part to DA Collins. When I was an intern, they said, hey, you should really apply for this. And then once I got my feet under me in a professional capacity, I started serving on some committees there. And here's my shameless plug for: no matter what industry you're in, there is an association for you or a group of people for you. Even if you're a union tradesperson, that's what your local is there for. They're your representatives. And you get out of an association what you put into it. And I was ready to start doing some work for the association. And I found that to be really fun and really engaging. And the more I learned about what they did for the industry, it just really kind of blew my mind. And then when a job opportunity came up there, it kind of just seemed like a natural fit. And I had support from my bosses at DA Collins. And they were like, again, nobody wants to see you fail. We're going to make sure that you're supported in this role. And that was really my first parlay into being able to step back from the project level and from the company level of what are we dealing with on a day-to-day basis, to a bigger picture of what is going on around the country and around the state that impacts the business that we're all trying to do. So whether that's a policy perspective or workforce development initiatives, or working on Capitol Hill, down in Washington with AGC of America, seeing how all of those parts and pieces came together so that the people in the field could do their work without these hiccups. We were managing all of that stuff in the background. And I just love this. Like I kind of fell into it and I absolutely love it.
And so you learned a whole different side of when we talk about policy and politics that go into the mix. And so just to understand that, I think brings a whole level and different knowledge base to any position that you do in that construction and industry space, construction and trades industry space. So I know in having met you while you were at AGC and sort of followed you and your career in that role, that you were able to have opportunities to meet some pretty interesting people and travel. What fun things can you share about some of those experiences that you had while you're at the AGC?
Yeah, I would say people is my favorite part of this. Is when you're working for a trade association, especially a statewide one, or now I'm region-wide, so I'm in all of New England and New York, you get to meet and interact with the best of every person at every company. And to be able to expand your network to those sorts of people and see how they think and see how they problem solve, it makes you a better human overall. So that's always really cool. But specifically when I was with AGC, doing some of the work down in DC. So we would go down, they had the Transportation Coalition fly-in that I would go down for with a bunch of folks from New York. We'd all go down and we would lobby with our congressional representatives. And as somebody who, like I said, I was pretty good at math and science in middle school. I don't remember history at all, how a bill becomes a law. I had to like re-listen to that song. But it really opened my eyes to my generation and how there is kind of a disconnect when it comes to construction advocacy and how bills become laws. You know, by the time it hits you in the construction company, by the time it's already a law and it's impacting your project, all that work advocating on behalf of or against it happened years ago. So being able to kind of talk to my counterparts or my peers across the industry and say, hey, you know, this is why we need to pay attention to these things because this will impact us 5 years from now, was huge. And definitely it was a lot of fun to do it in DC also, to see everybody across the country come together to advocate for something. So
Yeah, that would be a cool experience for sure. And then what it brings to the lenses now that you have and sort of seeing ahead in the future and understanding that we got to start this now to see change and sort of, you know, start some of those initiatives up and know, you know, the direction that you have to go in and get support. So that's a definitely a interesting, you know, add-on to help you in the positions and any position that you have. So would you say what was the biggest takeaway if you had one of the experience that AGC brought to you?
I think just that people and relationship piece is just
Yeah.
how interconnected our entire industry is. You know, somebody always knows a guy.
Yeah.
And
Or
that
girl.
could be or girl, right? And it
Yeah.
could be another contractor. It could be you need a bonding agent and somebody knows somebody. It could be an owner. It could there's so many parts and pieces to what we do that, you know, understanding how interconnected all of that is and how networking can kind of be like a buzzword in some industries or something you might dread doing if you're not an extrovert. Now, I don't mind getting out there and networking, but a lot of people don't like it.
Right,
But
right.
to be able to literally have a network that you can rely on when you run into a problem is huge. And that's something that trade associations give you, especially the AGC.
So yeah, and that's definitely an area that I've come to learn and then there's a difference between, you know, I came from a legal background and I would cringe at the thought of a mixer or you know, avoid it like the plague, but completely different experience now that I've been able to, you know, be involved with AGC and be involved in other associations. And it just is a different feel for sure with the people and the personalities in the construction and trades industry. Definitely, it's not on my cringe list anymore, and actually look forward to it. And I'm not an extrovert, so that's a big thing for me to be able to say I don't mind them, right?
Yeah, same. Like I enjoy conferences, and not a lot of
Yeah,
people say
yeah.
that.
Yeah, I told Scott recently, I'm like, I got to wear a pin that says my social battery so you know where I'm at, right? If I'm in the red, it's time to go home.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now we are at PCI, and I think let's give you an opportunity to share with everybody the amazing things that you're doing at PCI, what PCI does, to explain a little bit about their space in the industry, and then what you do as your role with them.
Yeah. So I am the executive director for PCI Northeast. It's the Precast Pre-Stressed Concrete Institute Northeast chapter. So the Northeast chapter part is just New England and New York. That's the area that we represent. I do have other counterparts across the country that represent other regions. And we belong to a national organization, or we're a chapter of that national organization, and that's the Precast Pre-Stressed Concrete Institute. Now, what they do primarily is they set the standards for designing with pre-stressed concrete. Now, pre-stressed concrete is a specific type of precast concrete, and we won't go totally into the technical details. But if you think about total precast structures, maybe like parking garages, or certain types of bridge beams that it would be used in lieu of like a steel girder, we've got pre-stressed concrete girders. And then we also have a side of our organization that handles architectural precast. So a lot of buildings, especially in the multi-use space, if you have like a parking garage on a lower deck and an office space on an upper deck, if we have a lot of schools, like the New York City School Construction Authority uses a lot of architectural precast for their buildings. And with that, we've got insulated wall panels, so we can kind of mitigate some of the other trades having to come in, deliver it as a prefab system almost, where you kind of just put in the Legos together on site. And with those architectural finishes, the world is our oyster. I work with architects consistently, and if they can have a vision, we can create it with concrete. This is not your grandma's concrete, as I like to say. It doesn't just have to be a gray box anymore. We can do anything with concrete. And most anything that you can cast in place, you could probably precast it. So my organization is out there trying to educate about what pre-stressed concrete is. And the funny thing is that concrete has been around for over 1,000 years. Pre-stressed concrete was a concept that was introduced in the United States in the 50s. So if you think about us being 70 years young as a engineering concept, we're the babies of the industry. So we're kind of hitting the ground running as if we're brand new, even though we're 70 years old. But as far as construction materials go, it is a little bit newer. So we're out there just trying to grow the awareness. And when it comes to workforce development, just like every trade organization is, how do we grow our own workforce, and how do we supplement everybody else that we're working for to the best of our ability?
Now, when you talk about workforce and growing workforce, what's your experience as what you feel some of the biggest struggles are in that development of retention and getting people, to consider careers in that path? What do you feel you're seeing across the board as some of the biggest hurdles in that area?
I think the hurdles, it's the exposure. If
Mhm.
kids or if you're looking for a second career, we do a lot of work with veterans, or folks coming out from incarceration, or immigrants, or just anybody who's looking for a second career or a first career. If they don't have exposure to the construction industry or the manufacturing industry, because really precast is kind of the middle of those two. If they don't know about it, they don't know what they don't know. So
Right.
it's getting them into the plants, it's getting them to see what we're doing, to understand how it works, and to understand all the different roles that exist. Because that's something that I often talk about is, yes, we need tradespeople on the floor doing the hands-on carpentry and the laboring and the ironworking, and, finishing the concrete and sandblasting these finishes. But we also need accountants, and we need office staff, and we need estimators and salespeople. So we kind of focus on all of it to the degree that we can. And that goes right up to people that work with our products for engineers, architects, and construction management students. So really, when we talk about workforce on our side, we're kind of approaching it from both sides. Who's going to be the future of working in the plants, but also who's going to be the future person that is working with the material so that they understand how it's made, and how to use it.
As far as, I know you do a lot. I love to watch the different adventures you're on. I know you travel a lot with your current role, and I watch you on social media and see where you're at and all of the great structures that you're taking a look at, from parking garages and all these amazing structures. So that is a significant piece of getting people just to be aware of, like, all of these great projects and amazing things in precast that can be constructed. What would you say is like another area that we can really try and educate people on? Is it educating at a higher level within the high school level? Is it working more diligently with the BOCES programs? What are your thoughts on some of those avenues?
Managing payroll and workers' comp shouldn't slow you down. PeopleEase PEO delivers a complete solution for hard-to-place workers' comp, seamless payroll, HR support, and benefits management, built specifically for blue and gray-collar industries. From pay-as-you-go workers' comp to streamlined onboarding, compliance, and competitive benefits, PeopleEase will help you stay protected, efficient, and focused on the job. Visit peopleease.com or call 941-224-8981 to learn more. And make sure you ask for Nick.
What are your thoughts on some of those avenues?
Yeah, I think it's all of the above is the answer. And we're trying to get into different levels as well. I've got a really cool event that we're doing next week where we partnered with ACI, who's the American Concrete Institute. They focus on the codes and standards for just your traditional cast in place concrete. And I'm partnering with their New England branch and the Federal Highway Administration. We're bringing in, we're calling it a concrete convoy. So we've got their mobile testing facility. FHWA has the latest and greatest in all the concrete testing technologies in this really excellent educational trailer that travels around the country. So they're coming to meet us, and we're setting up precast trailers with them. So we're going to have mock-ups of structural components so that you can see what this pre-stressed strand looks like inside, how's the rebar configured, just how much concrete is in there. And then we're going to have some architectural mock-ups and things like that. So we're taking them around to 3 different schools in Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Connecticut. And we've invited not only the engineering, architecture, and construction management students from all the surrounding universities, but we've added in invites to the technical high schools. So the BOCES, so to say, of these other states are able to bring their students in too, so that we can, kind of holistically all look at concrete as a whole together. And go through anything that the students want to go through. So I'm pretty excited. It's a brand new event for us. So I'm excited to see how it goes as we start to bring in, some younger folks.
That's
And then
amazing.
one of my counterparts down in Georgia, Carolinas, she's been working, her and her producer group have been working with as young as 4th graders, and they bring in like little Lego molds, and they're pre-casting Legos in the classroom and then go into the plant to do a field trip. So exposing is the goal. It doesn't really matter how old you are or what path you're headed down. If you don't know that it exists, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, and that's, even younger than sometimes that, at that high school age group is almost a little bit too late, because they got to sort of be able to navigate and really know and educate and learn and have some maybe even real world experiences with going to events like you're putting on, with actually getting to see it and feel it. So hitting as young as you can, I think, is an amazing way to approach education as a whole, with understanding all of the really cool opportunities that exist in the construction and trades. If someone were to want to learn more specifically about that event and the trailers that are going to be out on that run, would they reach out and get information through PCI?
Yeah, I mean, that event will
Yeah.
probably be passed by the time this gets published, but we've always got information on our website and our socials. We talked about LinkedIn a little bit earlier. There's so much going on in LinkedIn, and I feel like that's a good space to be talking about how to further our workforce development efforts is from a storytelling capacity, construction as a whole. How do we tell how cool our story is? Because our industry is it's cool. Like, let's be honest, it's really cool. It's exciting. You get to build something tangible, and 10, 15, 20 years from now, you can be driving down the road being like, hey, I built that. Hey, I was a part of that. And as the society as a whole changes and as our needs change, we're here to help adapt our structures. So if you think about COVID and how much that changed how offices are used in urban settings, and how do we make sure that that space is being used if it's not being used for offices? Well, we can transition it to residential. How do we do that? Well, you need folks in the construction industry to do something like that. But how do we tell that story, and how are those stories being consumed? Is it on a video platform? Is it graphics? Is it what's catching kids' attention, but also what's catching the attention of the people who are already doing the work? And getting them to talk about their story, because what you guys do here is incredible, right? Get people who have been doing the work to come in and talk so passionately about what they do, because I feel like anybody in our industry, we love what we do and we are so happy to talk about it. But we just got to get that message out a little bit better as a whole.
And that's the amazing piece of it, the way that the energy you bring to everything and the passion that you have and thinking outside the box. I'm sure the value that you've brought already to your role at PCI has been significant, just in sort of, being a little bit of an innovator and creativity with thinking outside the box and that energy level. What a great asset you are, I can imagine, to any organization, but just to educate and have that passion to just educate people of all of the amazing things that go on. And it's kind of funny, like I think of you seeing the world through these different lenses of, like, we take for granted and we park in our parking garages, but you just see things so differently. and the knowledge that you have is just is amazing to me. So I think we're going to start to wrap up a little bit our first segment, and really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you, Sarah, to be able to pick your brain and, just hear some of the amazing things and energy that you bring to all your roles, but also the value that you bring into sort of thinking outside this box mentality and spreading the word of all of the great things that are happening, and why it's really cool to consider a career in the construction and trades. So I appreciate your time for educating us today. I could talk to you forever about just all of those intricacies the way that you look at things and the things that just in the construction piece of it, from being able to tell what's going on with a bridge and how you construct one of those amazing structures in the precast world. So super appreciative of your time today. We'll end this first segment with sort of a fun close with, we call it our lightning round, and this will be a fun way to learn a little bit more about you. So I've got a few quick lightning round questions, and we'll close up with those. So would you say you're an early bird or night owl?
Early bird.
Early bird. Coffee or energy drink?
Coffee. All the coffee.
Do you have a hard cutoff time for that, or are you still good
No,
with it?
espresso all day.
There you go.
The more
so now we know
coffee, the
where
better.
all the energy comes from. Hard hat or office day?
I would have said hard hat a couple years ago, and now I'm going to say classroom.
Nice.
Because I love taking the students out to the plants, taking them out to job sites, and going to visit them and kind of bring some experts, some producers with me, and teaching them. So I'm gonna go halvesies with classroom.
Serious or sarcastic?
Sarcastic.
Scheduled or spontaneous? I think you might know that one.
I don't know. I like to schedule my spontaneity.
I could see a mix of that. The scheduled, I thought for sure you're in. So, and we'll end on this one. This is a fun one. If your job title had a mascot, what would it be?
Oh, this is a hard one. I'm gonna say a beaver. And because I feel like I need to explain why, because as a trade organization, we're working in the background to build that infrastructure for whatever's needed in our industry. So I'm going to say we're the busy beaver in the back so that you guys can do what you need to do in the front.
Nice. All right. Well, thanks, Sarah. We'll close up this and we're going to switch over to the Patreon side.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. And thanks for everybody, of course, for listening. We appreciate all of your support on the show. You can find us at bluecollarstartup.io is our website. You can also find us on Rumble, YouTube, Spotify, Apple. Make sure you like, subscribe. I believe we need some reviews on those sites. I'm being told by my team that our ratings are dropping because we're not getting reviews. So please head on over to Apple, give us a little 5-star review. Really appreciate it. And looking forward to hearing more on the Patreon side from Sarah and from Stacy. And of course, if you're not familiar with the Patreon side of what we do, folks, it is our members portal. We do a short segment every single episode, or we try to anyway. Just additional content. We try to gear it towards our guests. We try to gear it towards growing and scaling businesses in the trades. So jump on over. Links will be in the show notes. Thanks, everybody.
And that wraps up another episode of Blue Collar Startup. A big thank you to our sponsors, 5 Towers Media, Daigle Cleaning Systems, Daigle Fire Solutions, The Michaels Group, Martin Electric, MLB Construction, Bonaccio Construction, Peoplease, and Catamount Consulting for making this podcast possible. And thank you for tuning in. If you learned something or felt inspired, connect with us on our website at bluecollarstartup.io or email us at hardhat.bcsu@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your questions and topic ideas. Help us spread the word by sharing the show and following us on social media for updates. Until next time, keep on building, keep on dreaming, and keep hustling like your future depends on it.